Another day, another scandal for the Democrats' shell-shucking sex pest. The New York Post talking to one of Graham Platner's former lovers, a left-wing streamer, who claims that Platner bragged to her that the Nazi tattoo was a reminder that, quote, the U.S. was the evil bad guy overseas. And she's got the receipts. Mom texts from September 2025, way before the country knew of the nipple scene around the world. She blasted him for his Nazi tattoo, having small manhood, and claims that he tarnished her reputation by using her to step out on his fiancée. But P. Hustle thinks Trump's the bad guy.
He said you are, quote, the worst than any human being that's ever run for office, probably. What'd you think when you heard that?
Well, coming from certainly the worst person to have ever run for office, I take it as an immense compliment. Much of the allegations that have come out as of late are literally just lies. And so, I don't really, they've already gotten to the point where they're moving into just making things up.
The raw bar Romeo also faces separate allegations from another ex, that he physically threatened and grabbed her hard enough to leave marks. But apparently that's not a big deal to a New York Times reporter who's considered one of the founding mothers of the Me Too movement.
They're not about a boss and a young female employee being subjected to sexual advances. They were mostly made in the context of consensual relationships. There are these very sensational texts about sex. There are allegations from former girlfriends that are not, the way my colleagues reported them, were not like classic abuse allegations.
And let's not forget the Democrats' other experiment to win back men. The Texas vegan who believes that there are 6 genders and God is non-binary, Talafrico, knows what a real man looks like.
A man takes responsibility. A man upholds his commitments to his family and his neighbors. A man does what's right even when no one is watching. And here's what real men don't do. They don't lie and cheat their way through life. They don't sell their soul to the highest bidder. Real men serve others. Weak men serve themselves.
Let's get a women's perspective here. Joey Jones.
What? Great start.
He speaks for all of us.
Tell me what you think of the latest allegations against Platt.
Here's what I want to say. Number one, each individual one of these things, I've got friends that represent just about every one of them. Like, I've got a buddy that's got a tattoo he needs to get rid of. I've got a buddy that's been terrible with women. I've got a buddy that's, said all the, unspoken truths about the Porta-John. But we do it in group text, or we do it by the campfire. We do it in joking. We do it with dark humor, and we do it for a reason that Platner tries to claim, which is almost this well, I went to war and war was so bad, so I got to come back and be an a-hole to everybody. And it's like, no, bro, you got to come back and grow up. You eventually got to grow out of it. All those buddies I just talked about, they've gone through programs, they've reclaimed their lives, and they're pushing forward. So you can't both be a veteran that gets to be, terrible in character and everything else because of war, and also ready to go be in the Senate. But I just want to say something we don't talk about. He supports red flag laws for guns. He supports universal health care so you can have taxpayer-funded abortion, gender-affirming care. He's against bans on trans girls in sports. He wants to defund ICE, do congressional investigations for ICE officers. He thinks we should be friends with China and partner with them for climate change. They would be a great partner for that. He wants to remove federal taxes on gas. So we're like, okay, I'm listening. But he wants to replace it with a windfall tax. So anytime oil and gas makes any money, it all comes to us to do a massive federally funded bailout on the infrastructure of solar and wind. So Solyndra all over again. It's okay to talk about the fact this dude's policies are trash. He may be trash too, but we don't talk about the fact his policies are. And you know what? If the people of Maine want that for their policy, then that's who they should vote for. Because I don't think, as bad as his character is, he's worse than half the people in D.C. that are doing a lot better job of hiding it.
You think his horrible policies, Kat, are kind of flying under the radar while everybody feasts on his tabloid scandals?
Policy is absolutely flying under the radar because his scandals are uniquely bizarre in a way, right? There's a lot of terrible people in politics, obviously, but the fact that this is coming out, that 2 women are saying he knew this was a Nazi tattoo, and still had his shirt off this much is what really blows my mind more than anything. I know a lot has come out, but he used this as a defense of like, I obviously didn't know. I had my shirt off all the time. Who would do such a thing? And now that's what I'm asking, because I thought that there's no way he could have known because he had his shirt off so much. That is a strange kind of illness. I don't think people care that much. I mean, with politics now, it becomes this reverse, I know you are, but what am I? But it's like, oh, I know I am, but what are you? Where it's this side did this side did this side did this. And I think that he could get elected despite all this stuff. But you know what's messed up is, what he could never do? Be on Love Island. He could never make it on Love Island. We hold people to who are going to be on reality TV shows way higher standards than we do anybody who is actually going to be in a position to make policy that affects the rest of us.
That girl, what was her, Frankie from The Bachelorette?
Oh, yeah.
Taylor Frankie Paul
bounced.
She did throw chairs in the vicinity of her child that may have hit her child.
Yeah,
that's
maybe.
a bad example.
That is a bad example. But I'm kind of close to a better example. I don't watch a lot of reality TV.
With the spirit of what you're saying, but that was a horrible example. In Love Island, okay, these are all people in their early 20s. There have been 3 people in the past year that have been canceled either from before they were on the show or after they're on the show for saying slurs. Not great, obviously. Not pro-slurs, obviously. However, what they're being elected to is to make out with each other in bikinis, sometimes covered in paint, on an island in Fiji. That is which impacts none of us whatsoever.
You're saying the standards are lower for the Senate than they are for Love Island.
Way lower. It's not even close. If you were Pocahontas for Halloween when you were 4 years old, you can't be on Love Island.
That's true.
You can't be, but you can have a Nazi tattoo. And also, I love the whole, well, it was mostly consensual because there are allegations of physical abuse. So, yes, it's just because politics has gotten so partisan. It was like, well, but the other side did this. Well, but the other side did this. Well, but the other side did this. And then we end up just talking past each other and it just becomes so insane what people are willing to accept.
It is pretty insane. I'm learning now that I guess this woman found out that Platner was engaged while she was sleeping with Platner. I never even knew he broke off an engagement. So why was the engagement broken off? That's what we need to find out. What happened there?
Well, this guy's had a lot of really bad breakups. And it's bad.
That doesn't mean anything.
It's bad because one of the exes even had to get a jab in about his manhood size. So that was a really bad breakup to get that jab in there. But here's the thing. Look, I worked in politics before getting into this job. I was a vice president of a polling firm. I worked as a communications director on a Senate race, NRCC, the list goes on. The challenge that Republicans face is at some point you reach oversaturation, where it just starts to be baked into this is just who this individual is. Like, for instance, oh, that's just another woman with Bill Clinton, right? It stops hitting, voters just start shrugging it off. Whereas, for instance, if we found out Mike Pence was having affairs, that would be politically devastating for his career because it's contradictory to who he is as a man. Democrats have been behind some of this opposition research that has surfaced against Graham Platner. Chuck Schumer wanted Janet Mills to be the candidate. He recruited her, but that came crashing down on primary night when Graham Platner got over 70%, and it was game over. He's going to be the nominee. If I'm Republicans, I'm holding the good stuff I have till closer to the fall because new information is always going to be more potent than what's already baked into the political atmosphere. I also think Platner, he's a creep, but he's an effective creep. He's done a good job of positioning himself, us versus them, the anti-establishment candidate, similar to what Donald Trump has done in the past. The last thing I'll add is ultimately this race could be outside of either candidate's control. What does the overall political environment look like? If it's a wave, it could end up just sweeping Platner into office.
Well, the good thing, Greg, about Platner is that now the Democrats can't point their fingers at us about anything.
That is true. Once again, we get more freedom because they disown their own principles. You know what, though? There are 2 cover-ups going on. There's the, by the way, Joey, I'm glad you didn't cover up your chest today. The first obvious cover-up is the tattoo. He literally covered it up. And the reason why he covered it up is because He knew that it was a Nazi tattoo. How do you know that? Because there are different stories that he uses depending on who he woos. So if he's trying to pick up a socialist chick, he says, I had this tattoo to remind me how bad America was. And then when he wants a right-wing chick, he says, this is to remind everybody I'm a stone cold killer.
Yeah.
You know, it was like this guy, this was his pick, this was his flair. This is what he had to get chicks. It's like when I talk about my charity work. But then, okay, so we, by focusing on the sex and the gossip, we forget that story, and that helps him. The more you focus on the prurient stuff, you miss this stuff. But the bigger cover-up, again, is, as I guess it was Joey started talking about, was the policy. So why isn't the policy, which is horrible, the issue? It's because the policy is excusing his behavior. The New York Times, other places, they don't talk about his policy because that's the reason why they're holding on to him. They hope that if we focus on the women, we won't notice these other things. It's the, again, for some reason, the Democrats have chosen this Trojan horse kind of mechanism, the same thing they did with Joe Biden. If it looks like something, we can slip in this radical persona underneath it, just because he has a walrus mustache and a voice like what's he got a voice like? He's got a voice like a
Wilford Brimley.
Wilford Brimley on Quaaludes. And that way, like, we kind of overlook the fact that he's basically AOC, but worse. He may sound like a Scranton pipe fitter, but he's a purple-haired Antifa screamer. He's another Trojan horse. There are millions of dudes out there with hard jobs who fought for our country, who don't spout this socialist crap. Why don't they find that? They don't want it.
Well, if he's a Trojan horse, he's a very small Trojan horse, according to the X.
Well, you're the expert.
Ooh.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.